My name is Mike Fredericks, and I'm from Centerville. I grew up on Cape Cod most of my life. I moved to Cape when I was 8 years old. I met my wife actually when we were in middle school. So I was 13, she was 14, from two different towns. So she's a Falmouth person, I'm a Barnstable person. And she very much appreciated the fact that I went to Cape Cod Tech for high school because that kind of put us on neutral ground. And we reconnected after she graduated from college, and that's when we really hit things off and were engaged within a year or two after that. I was actually adopted as a child, and so I didn't know any blood relatives. So the first time the first child we had born, Gabrielle, that was the first blood relative that I had ever known. And it was pretty amazing at that point just to see her and touch her and know. And it's not to say that my adoptive family wasn't important. And the dad that I speak of a lot was my adoptive dad, and I just refer to him as my dad, right? Because that's what he is. So, but having that connection with a biological relative was an amazing gift from God. So I've been so appreciative of that. And I've actually had an opportunity over the years to connect with my biological mother as well. I was about 36 years old when my biological mother actually found me through the adoption agency. I got a letter from the adoption agency saying that she wanted to connect with me, and if I was willing, they would connect the two of us together. So, and how I found out was I was at work. I was actually out of state at a customer site, and I got a call from Kate saying, there's a letter in the mail from Catholic Charities. Can I open it up? And I said, sure. So she opened it up and started reading it, and then you could just tell she was starting to cry a bit on her end, and she was reading it to me. Here it was, my biological mother wanted to reach out and connect with me, and she read the letter to me, and then she said, okay, well, I said, I'll talk about it when we get home. It was a 3-hour drive home. I'll talk about it when we get home and stuff. So I had a lot of time to think about I think where I was at. But I think deep down, we both knew separately of each other that it was something that we had to pursue. Certainly we talked through the potential downsides of doing that. What do they want? Who are they? Things like that. But we were confident that God had set this in action for some reason, and we were willing to take the chance, which eventually led to us meeting in person for the first time at a Panera. And my wife and I both waited there at the agreed upon time for my biological mother to walk in the door, and of course had no idea what she looked like. So as every middle-aged woman walked in the door kind of saying, is that my mother? Is that my mother? And then coincidentally, so these two women walked forward, and it became clear that at least one of them was my mother. I didn't know which one yet, and it turned out that it was my aunt and my biological mother. So she had come with her to support her. So for a brief moment, I knew it was one of them, but I didn't know which one. So that was kind of interesting. But we had a great time getting to meet each other, spent a few hours just sitting there talking. She had me when she was 15 years old and almost died giving birth to me. And it was a pretty emotional story from her and something that stuck with her. And, I got to see it from her perspective a little bit, always wondering, where was I? Was I still alive? Did I turn out okay? Did she make the right decision? And it was just great to be able to sit there, and she could see me, she could touch me, she could know that I had a great upbringing, I had a great family, and she had done the right thing. It's hard for me to imagine what it would have been like had I not been a follower of Jesus at that time, but I can guess, and I can think maybe there would have been some anger. Why did she give me up? And I wasn't good enough, and certainly there's some anxiety in me, right, with that going forward. And I don't think they're related, but at that time you could be asking yourself those questions. Having God's perspective on the situation helped me realize that there's room for a lot of people in my life. God tells us we should be welcoming and loving and forgiving, and there's a great opportunity to extend our family by just being open to what God has in store for us. Having that relationship with Jesus has allowed me to look at those things knowing that He has a greater plan for what's going on, and that it may not always be what I think it should look like, but if I can step back and trust God in that moment and know that His plan is at work, then that helps relieve some of the worry and the fear and the anger that might typically come along with these events happening in your life.